What's up, everybody? It's Greg from Cincinnati Reds Daily. Welcome back. Today, I should say yesterday, we got some official roster news. I know I'm a day late. I apologize about that. Sometimes life and work and everything gets in the way. But on Tuesday, November 18th, it was the final day for MLB teams to add players to the 40-man roster to protect them from the Rule 5 draft in December. And the Cincinnati Reds made 3 roster additions. Let's break it all down. So the Reds selected the contracts of Hector Rodriguez, Edwin Arroyo, and Leo Balcazar on Tuesday. And to make room, a little surprising move here, they designated pitcher Carson Spiers for assignment. None of these moves are too surprising. Again, Spiers is a little surprising, but he had been injured, so nothing crazy there. Balcazar was the one question mark if he would be promoted or not. The Reds sent him down, or they did not send him down. They sent him to the Arizona Fall League, much like they did with Tyler Callahan last season, to see how he would perform and probably wanted to see if he was worth um, adding to the 40-man or not. Balcazar was awesome in the Arizona Fall League, and the Reds decided to go ahead and add him to the 40-man. The Reds did not want to risk losing him or any of these other guys to the Rule 5 draft, where rebuilding teams are always willing to take a chance on young, talented players. So the first move, let's get into Carson Spiers, who was DFA'd. Again, a bit of a surprising move. He began the season as the Reds' fifth starter while Andrew Habit was still recovering from his injury. Unfortunately, Spiers saw his 2025 season cut a bit short. He underwent Tommy John surgery halfway through the year or so, ending his season. Before the injury, Spiers was 0-2 with a 6.08 ERA. For his career with the Reds, Spiers is 5-10 with a 5.69 ERA across 29 games and 117 innings. Nothing amazing there, but Spiers is usually a guy that can come out of the bullpen, throw a couple innings, and he's fine. He's not amazing, but he is a good depth piece. He was undrafted out of Clemson during the COVID shutdown year. We'll see if he clears waivers. I would love him to clear waivers. Like I said, he's great starting pitching depth. The injury could help Cincinnati sneak him through waivers, but there's no guarantee. All right, on to the 3 that were added. First, we're going to start with Hector Rodriguez, probably the biggest name protected today. Rodriguez was the Reds' 9th ranked prospect and their highest ranked outfielder. In 2025, he had a big season. The first half of the year, he was with Double A Chattanooga. He slashed 298, 357, 481 with 12 home runs. He had 45 walks and 48 strikeouts, which was a big improvement on his plate discipline. Rodriguez is known for being able to hit, balls off the plate, turn kind of pitchers' pitches into pitches that he can rip for hits. It does concern me a little bit. I'm not sure how much that happens in the major leagues these days, a little bit like CES, but we'll see. He's slowly getting more disciplined. He was promoted to Triple A with Sal Stewart on July 18th. His numbers weren't quite as good in Triple A, but he was still decent. He slashed 260, 304, 405 with 7 home runs in 53 games. If you remember, Rodriguez was acquired from the New York Mets in the Tyler Naquin trade back in 2022. The Reds got Rodriguez and pitcher Jose Acuna, who is also in the Reds minor leagues. Now Rodriguez is officially protected on the 40-man roster. So let's get into Edwin Arroyo next. Edwin Arroyo was an obvious name to protect here. Arroyo probably could have been in AAA by now, but he missed all of the 2024 season due to a season-ending, I believe it was a shoulder surgery that he suffered during the 2024 spring training. In 2025, he did bounce back strong. He slashed 284, 345, 371 with 30 extra base hits. Defensively, he did take a small step forward. He still had 17 errors, which was a bit high, but Arroyo is known for his slick glove and above average defense. He takes a lot of risks defensively. I'm not too worried about his glove. The Reds acquired Arroyo in the Luis Castillo deal, the same deal that brought them Noelvi Marte. He's expected to start the 2026 season, probably in AAA. There's a chance he could be with the Reds at some point next season. And lastly, Leo Balcazar, like we said, he was probably the one question mark or the one that you weren't sure if he was going to get protected or not, the Reds did decide to protect him after his strong performance in the Arizona Fall League. He started the 2025 in High A Dayton. He slashed 262, 333, 413 with 27 extra base hits and 9 home runs. The Reds decided to promote him to Double A Chattanooga on July 11th, and he remained a solid player there. He had only 6 extra base hits in Double A, but the Reds still believed in his underlying tools. And then from there, they kind of decided, hey, we're going to have Balcazar play in the Arizona Fall League, and that sealed the Reds' decision. He had 6 doubles in the Arizona Fall League. He hit 277, and he showed some defensive versatility, playing a lot of third base, which he hasn't done much before. He also played second base and shortstop. Balcazar is still just 21 years old. He missed one minor league development season because of a torn ACL on one of the first games of the season. So I think these 3 moves were the correct moves the Reds should make. I'm not sure I would have DFA'd Spiers, but like I said, hopefully he can squeak through waivers. And it does, he's recovering from Tommy John surgery. So I guess it's one of the easier moves to make. So with the offseason in full swing, the Reds made it clear they weren't going to risk losing any of these 3 promising young players to another club willing to give them a major league roster spot. I've said this before, but I'll just go ahead and explain it for those of you who may not know. The Rule 5 draft for Major League Baseball is in December every season. Basically, what happens in the Rule 5 draft, any guy that is not on a 40-man roster. So let's say the Reds decided to not put Hector Rodriguez on the 40-man roster. Any team would have the option to draft him. So let's say, we'll just say the Athletics decided to draft Hector Rodriguez. If they drafted him, they would have to keep Rodriguez on their roster for the whole season in order to keep them on the major league roster, not just on the 40-man, on the major league roster. If they had Rodriguez and in June they decided, hey, we're not going to have him on the 40-man anymore, they would actually be required to send him back to the Reds unless the 2 teams were to work out a deal. So that's kind of how it works. So sometimes you'll see a team that's really bad and is kind of not expected to perform or expected to be, one of the worst teams in the league. Maybe they'll take a risk on a high upside guy, knowing, hey, we're not going to play him a ton this year, or knowing he might struggle this year, but we're willing to stack him on our bench all season because we're going to be terrible anyway. And then down the road, it'll pay off because now we have him on our team. You'll see that sometimes. You don't see it as much with position players because it's hard to stack position players on your bench all season, where as pitchers, you can kind of put somebody at the back of the bullpen or have him pitch in blowouts or whatnot. So that's kind of the Rule 5 draft. I can't think of the name off the top of my head, but the Reds, Cooper Bowman, the Reds drafted in the Rule 5 draft last season, and he didn't make the team out of spring training, so the Reds sent him back, and I believe that was the Athletics. So the Rule 5 draft is interesting, but that's kind of how it works for those of you who don't know. Other than that, we do have some Reds news that I will get to here quickly, just to run down some most recent news. Sean Casey went on MLB Network yesterday. That's Tuesday for whatever day you guys are listening to this, and said, I'd be shocked if Cincinnati doesn't make a run at him. And guess who him is? Kyle Schwarber. He's from right outside Cincinnati. His family's from there. I think he has a house there. The Reds need a power bat like Schwarber. That place would come down to see a guy like this, Casey said. Schwarber, ultimately, he slashed 240, 365, 563 with 81 extra base hits, including a National League leading 56 home runs last season. Man, we would love to have that in the middle of the lineup with the Reds. Casey did go on to say he thinks Schwarber will be back with the Phillies. So that is interesting. It also came out yesterday from Jeff Passan. I don't know. I should know how you say his name. I butchered it there. But it also came out that the Pirates are looking to sign Kyle Schwarber, and they actually offered a 5-year deal to the Mariners first baseman, Josh Naylor, before he ultimately decided to sign back with the Mariners. Passan said the demand for Schwarber is high, which is no surprise considering he won't get more than a 5-year deal because of his age and positional inflexibility at a time as a full-time designated hitter. So those are a couple things on Schwarber. There was also an article, Mark Feinzan from MLB.com. He went through and picked a player from each team that he thinks could re-sign this offseason. He chose Emilio Pagan for the Reds. I think that would be surprising if Pagan re-signed with the Reds. He just seems like he's expected to get about 2 years, $22 million, according to an article from ESPN. That just seems like a lot of money for an aging reliever coming off his best season. I don't think the Reds are going to pay that. But here was Feinstein's quote: Pagan had an outstanding season in 2025, saving 32 games while posting a 2.88 ERA in 70 appearances for Cincinnati. The closer has said he wants to return and run it back with the Reds for 2026, making this a reunion ready to happen. Again, I don't think that's going to happen. The Reds have also been linked to guys like Devin Williams. I doubt that happens. Tony Santillan would be the guy internally that would be ready to take over the closer role possibly, but we'll see what happens there. And then lastly, we had some Hunter Green drama. You may have seen the video already. I'll try to recap it quickly here. But basically, Reds beat writer Mark Sheldon came out in an Ask Me Anything on Reddit where fans were asking him questions and basically said he was asked, or Sheldon was asked, why he felt comfortable asserting his opinion about the level of discomfort Green felt during his injury recovery. Here's what Sheldon reported. I'll read you his quote. While I certainly concede that only a player can truly know how hurt or how much discomfort he feels, I will note that very few players are ever feeling 100% once the season starts. The grind of the 162-game schedule means a lot of players play through something. This was a grade 1 groin strain, the least serious of that type. So this is Sheldon basically doubling down on his reporting that around the All-Star break, he said despite a clean MRI exam on July 7th, Green reported symptoms and canceled a rehab assignment. It's being left up to Green to determine when he can resume pitching. But for a guy with a long-term contract who says he wants to be a leader, Green needs to start showing it and get back on the field. When he is, he can be one of the best starters in baseball. So he's basically doubling down on his reporting and said he talked to people within the organization, and that's where his opinion came from. And that's kind of tells you what some of the people in the Reds front office might be thinking about Green. The whole thing is a mess. If the Reds front office feels that way, they don't need to be voicing their opinions through Mark Sheldon and let this get out publicly. Green's under contract through 2029. It's unlikely he's going anywhere. It just doesn't make sense for this drama to spew out the way it is, but that's where we are, I guess. But that's it for the Reds news. Tried to get some news in there after the big 40-man roster spots that happened yesterday. Do you agree with the Reds adding Rodriguez, Arroyo, and Balcazar to the 40-man? Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, I appreciate you guys being here. Like I always say, this channel continues to grow, and I'm new to YouTube, really. I've been doing it for a little less than a year, I'd say. And these videos I'm trying to do more and more. But thank you all for watching. Thank you for being here. This is Cincinnati Reds Daily, and as always, I leave you with the Go Reds. See you next time. See ya.